Hi everybody, in this lesson I'm going to show you lots of useful phrases and expressions for leading business meetings. Welcome back to English for Professionals. I'm Derek and I'm here with another short lesson for you busy people. Before we get started, just a quick reminder to subscribe to my channel, hit the red button and don't forget to click on the little bell. That way you'll be notified every time I upload a new lesson. And now let's get started with the lesson. In this lesson I have 41 examples in total on topics such as talking about the agenda, managing the discussion, delegating tasks and much more. Let's get started with welcoming and thanking the participants. First of all, I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you all for coming to today's meeting. Or, I'd like to start by thanking all of you for agreeing to meet at such short notice. We use the phrase at such short notice if the meeting has been called with very little time to prepare. And then we have a very simple example for informal internal meetings. Hello everybody and welcome. Now let's have a look at some different ways to introduce meeting participants. Before we get started, let me introduce, or I'd like you all to meet, or let's go round the table and introduce ourselves. Sometimes people who plan to attend the meeting can't make it, and this is also something that the meeting leader or chairperson should mention. Unfortunately, George can't join us today. He sends his apologies. Or, a little bit more formal, I'd like to apologise on behalf of Mr. Neary. He can't be with us today due to. And then you would mention the reason. And now let's look at a couple of examples for dealing with the minutes. Let's go over the minutes of our last meeting, which was held on June 16th. And Simon, could you please take the minutes today? So why is the meeting being held and what's on the agenda? Let's take a look. The purpose or aim or objective of today's meeting is, the first item on the agenda is, then we'll move on to item 2, which is, after that we'll look at, and finally we'll discuss. As the person who leads or chairs the meeting, it's your responsibility to make sure the other participants express their opinions. Let's take a look at how we can do that. Monica, what are your views on this? Mohammed, how do you see it? Natalia, can you give us your feedback? Would anyone else like to comment on this? Does anyone have anything else to add? Sometimes things have to be clarified or explained in more detail. Now, if the other participants don't ask for clarification or explanation, then the chairperson should. What exactly do you mean by? Could you explain that in more detail? Would you mind going over that again, please? I'm not sure everybody follows. Would you mind explaining that again? One of the chairperson's most important jobs is to manage the discussion. I think we can move on to the next point. If nobody has anything else to add, let's move on to the next item. I'm afraid we don't have time to discuss that in today's meeting. Let's add it to next week's agenda. I'm sorry, but I have to stop you there. We need to stick to the agenda. We'll have to come back to that at the end of the meeting. We're running out of time, so let's move on. Normally during a meeting, decisions are made and then there's a list of action points for your team. Let's have a look at some useful phrases for delegating tasks. Wolfgang, can you keep everyone up to date with the latest developments? Rachel, could you please follow up on? Pat, please get in touch with. So we're almost at the end of the meeting. Before we close, let's summarize. Let me briefly summarize what we've discussed today. Before we finish, let me summarize the main points. We've decided to, we've agreed that, we've summarized the main points, and now we're ready to end the meeting. Well, I think that covers everything. That brings us to the end of this meeting. Our next meeting will be on Thanks everyone. And that brings us to the end of this lesson. I hope you liked it and that you can try some of those phrases when you're leading or chairing your next meeting. If you liked the lesson, hit the like button and share it with your friends and colleagues. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done that already. And don't forget to join my email list. Every 2 weeks, I send out my free vocabulary email with additional business English vocabulary, words from the news, and everyday English for you to learn. The link is in the description below. Thanks a lot for watching and see you soon.